CD1. A note from Nami Wu. There were dinosaurs when I was a girl. There were great, grim ones that nested on the cliff tops like gigantic, scary lizards, and little brown, scuttling dinosaurs that hunted down mice and rats in well-organized packs. You will have to take my word for it, for the dinosaurs are disappearing so fast they may soon become extinct. Nobody knows what is happening. They are crawling back into the earth, leaving not a bone nor a fang for the men of the future to remember them by. So in order that these amazing creatures should not be forgotten, I will tell this true story from my childhood. I was not the sort of girl who could train a dinosaur with the mere lifting of an eyebrow. I was not a natural at the heroism business. I had to work at it. This is the story of becoming a hero the hard way. 1. First, catch your dinosaur. Long ago, on the wild and windy steppe, a smallish Hun with a longish name stood up to her ankles in snow. Nami Wu had been feeling slightly sick ever since she woke up that morning. 10 girls, including Nami, were hoping to become full members of the tribe by passing the dinosaur initiation program. They stood on a bleak little ridge at the bleakest spot on the whole bleak plains while a heavy snow was falling. "Pay attention!" screamed the soldier in charge of teaching initiation. He was a 7-foot giant with a mad glint in his one working eye and a beard like exploding fireworks. Despite the freezing cold, he wore hairy shorts and a teeny-weeny deerskin vest that showed off his lobster-red skin and bulging muscles. He held a flaming torch in one gigantic fist. "This will be your first military operation, and Nami will be commanding the team." "Oh, not Nami," groaned one of the other girls. "You can't put Nami in charge, she's useless." But the leader ignored them, his enthusiasm horrible and fanatical. "In half an hour's time, you will be a Hunnic warrior, with your faithful serpent at your side, or breakfasting in the afterlife with dinosaur teeth in your bottom." He paused dramatically and blew a great horn. Par r r r r r r r p. The girls tipped their heads backward. The cliff loomed dizzyingly high above them, black and sinister. In summer, the cliff was swarmed with dinosaurs of all shapes and sizes, snapping and biting. But in winter, the dinosaurs were hibernating, and the cliff fell silent, except for the ominous, low rumble of their snores. Nami could feel the vibrations through her sandals. "Inside the cave that looks like the right eye of the skull is the dinosaur nursery," the leader shouted. At this very moment, 3,000 young dinosaurs are having their last few weeks of winter sleep. I want you to take one of these baskets and start climbing the cliff. You will enter the cave quietly, and that means you too, or you'll become the first spring meal for 3,000 hungry dinosaurs. Ha 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 ha. 2. The first touch. The climb was perilous and agonizingly slow. The rocks were slippery with frozen sleet, and the freezing wind of the steppe whipped against Nami's face, making her eyes sting in water. Every time a foot slipped, a shower of pebbles would skitter down into the abyss, and Nami would freeze, terrified the noise would reach the ears of the sleeping horde above. When the group finally reached the mouth of the cave, the one that looked like the jagged, hollow right eye of a giant skull, Nami looked down at the vast, snowy plains stretching for miles below and swallowed very hard. Her heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird in a cage. "Untie the ropes," ordered the leader of the girls, her eyes popping with excitement at the thought of the dangers. Nami was on the small side and had the kind of face that was almost entirely unmemorable, making her easy to overlook in a crowd. But she had heroic hair, which stood up vertically no matter how much she tried to wet it down with snow or mare's grease. Inside the nursery, the air was thick, heavy, and smelled of damp earth and the low, sulphurous rumble of 3,000 sleeping dinosaurs. They had to walk quietly, on the very tips of their toes. This was the moment of the first touch. Nami moved past the overexcited girls who were grabbing for the flashiest, brightest creatures they could find, oblivious to the danger of waking them. She went deeper into the back of the cave, where the shadows were longest, and where the smaller, more intelligent basic browns huddled together for warmth in the crevices. She found her match. A sleek, smallish dinosaur with deep, chocolate-colored scales that seemed to absorb the light of her torch. She reached out a trembling hand, her fingers inches away from the creature's flank. The instructor's warning rang in her ears. "If you wake the horde, you'll become the first spring meal for 3,000 hungry mouths." Nami didn't grab or snatch. She moved with a slow, steady grace born of months of watching these creatures from afar. She finally made contact. She felt the rough, cool, and surprisingly dry texture of the scales, the first touch that binds a Hun to their partner for life. She lifted the creature gently, feeling the surprising weight and warmth of its sleeping body, and tucked it into her basket. It let out a tiny, whistling snore, a puff of warm air against her arm but remained asleep. Nami exhaled a long breath she didn't know she was holding. She had done it. She had her dinosaur, and the bond had begun. 3. Names and bonds. The Huns were a people of the steppe. They relied on their horses for sustenance, eating meat including horse meat, often cooked by saddle heating. They drank fermented mare's milk called kumis, and ate millet and roots from wild plants. Nami knew that her dinosaur would have to learn this nomadic way of life. She fed her new partner, whom she named Lunatic, scraps of meat and shared her milk. 4. Basic training. The call. Lesser humans train hawks to hunt for them, and horses to carry them, the elder had bellowed. It is only the Hun heroes who dare to tame the wildest, most dangerous creatures on Earth. Nami spent her days teaching Lunatic to be a scout. She carried the dinosaur in a specialized basket that had a lid where the creature could peek out. 5. Advanced training. The hunt. Nami's training was difficult because she wasn't naturally muscular. She had to use her knowledge of dinosaur behavior to stay ahead. She practiced moving through the snow, keeping Lunatic quiet so they could sneak up on prey. The Huns used their dinosaurs to supplement their diet, catching fish and helping with the hunt while staying mobile across the plains. 6. Survival in the wild. The bond was tested when they encountered a wild pack of dinosaurs in the scrubland. Nami had to prove she could command her partner even when fear took hold. If you return without a dinosaur, it is hardly worth coming back at all, the instructor's voice echoed. She stood her ground, using her torch to keep the wild pack at bay while Lunatic stayed loyal by her side. 7. Fight the Battle of the Lizard's Head. The final test came at the cliff known as the Lizard's Head, a jagged, terrifying rock formation that pierced the gray, heavy sky of the steppe like a broken, rotted tooth. This was the moment where the initiation turned into a true, bloody struggle for survival. The girls had to prove their courage and their skill at burglary by outsmarting a territorial group of wild, fully grown lizards that guarded the heights and viewed anything human as an intruder or a snack. Death or glory, the girls yelled with a horrible, fanatical enthusiasm that echoed off the cold stone walls. The wild lizards here were not hibernating. They were hungry, territorial, and vicious. As Nami reached the summit, the ground beneath her feet slick with old ice, a massive, scarred lizard lunged from behind a frozen boulder, its eyes glowing with a cold, ancient hunger. Its jaws snapped shut just inches from Nami's boot. The other girls scrambled in panic, but Nami stood her ground, her heart pounding but her mind clear. This was the moment she and Lunatic had trained for during the long, freezing nights in the yurts. Now, Lunatic. Distract and strike, Nami cried, her voice cracking with the cold but remaining firm with command. Lunatic didn't flee or hide. The small dinosaur darted out from Nami's deerskin vest like a blur of brown scales and lightning speed. It was a masterpiece of instinct and coordination. Lunatic nipped at the larger beast's sensitive heels and let out a piercing, rhythmic hiss, drawing the monster's attention entirely away from Nami. While the giant lizard swung its heavy, armored head to snap at the smaller, more agile creature, Nami used her wits. She didn't rely on brute force alone. She used her knowledge of the crumbling terrain. She swung her torch in wide, sweeping arcs, creating a wall of spitting fire that forced the wild pack back toward the crumbling edge of the cliff. It was a chaotic, screaming battle of teeth, claws, and flame. Nami and Lunatic moved as one, a single unit of Hun and dinosaur. They were a dance of shadow and light against the gray rock. By the time the sun began to set in a bruised purple over the frozen plains, the wild pack had been outmaneuvered and retreated into the dark crevices of the rock. Nami stood at the very peak of the lizard's head, breathless, shivering, and covered in soot and ice, but victorious. She had outlasted the wild, outsmarted the ancient predators, and proven to every girl who had ever called her useless that she was a true, high-ranking warrior of the Huns.